I got 5 wins in a row, and coming off of a knockout since Contender Series
Yeah.
is pretty wild to not have been called up yet.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
mean the new season's already, I think it's the beginning of August they're gonna be rolling out the new season, or mid-August or something like that. They haven't like reached out or anything and to see if you were available on any of those cards.
none. Um, yeah, I think the first card is August 13th,
Yep.
and they still haven't reached out. I've been talking to my manager, and I think that he wants to do a short notice. He's looking more so on a short notice UFC fight, but uh, I'm down for anything, Contender Series or UFC. Uh, you know, anything to get in.
Yeah. And like what would be like I know some people obviously can make the weight in like a week, but it's gonna be obviously really, really rough. What would be kind of that like, tipping point to where you're just like, I can't even make the weight at this point?
Man, I could make it in a couple hours. I've been really staying disciplined and watch what I'm eating, and I've been training extremely hard, and that's why whenever I see someone else get a chance before me, with me having a bigger and better record and a bigger win streak, I get a little irritated. I'm like, man, they could call me like they did with uh what's his name, that fought Diego Lopez on a couple hours notice.
Danny Gay, yeah.
Danny Ige, yeah, like if I would have been licensed, I would have 100% done that.
Yeah.
I could have made 160 in an hour. Uh, because I'm walking at 173 pounds right now. It's not a secret. Uh, I mean, I kept my weight extremely low, and I want an opportunity. I want to be in there so bad that I'm staying disciplined. So,
Yeah. I
uh,
mean, like that's kind of the dream scenario for most like UFC guys, is to literally not have to do the whole weight cutting thing, the whole fight camp, and just show up on fight day like 10 pounds over what they usually are and just fight. No weigh-ins necessary. Just kind of do what Diego Lopez and Dan Ige were able to do. Most UFC fighters really like we're interested in that type of a thing.
right. Right. Yeah, that would be ideal. Yeah, I mean, of course, I would like to have at least an 8 week to
Yeah.
10 week fight camp like everybody else does, but I know I'm not going to get that. Trying to get into the UFC, they're going to call me on 2 weeks, maybe a week, maybe 3 days, on 3 days notice. And I'm cool with it. I'm ready to go right now. I could fight tomorrow, and I could make weight here in probably about 3 or 4 hours. I could probably make weight. So that's what I keep stressing to my manager. I'm like, hey, I'll make weight on a dime to get in.
Yeah.
And he's got that, and I believe that he's pushing that for me, and he's one of the best in the game, Jason House.
And I mean, obviously, your last fight, I believe, was like the beginning of May, sort of mid-May. Are you kind of like happy with the fact that your next fight is going to be a little bit later and a little bit of a break for you in I believe the beginning of November?
Yeah. So that we agreed to that fight because the way that my manager put it was, if you don't get picked up by the UFC by November 3rd, then you need to fight in November anyways. You have to continue to stay active. Um, it's you can't have these big long layoffs and expect the UFC to pick you up.
Yeah.
Um, but what I have a strong feeling that I'm going to get picked up between now and November. Uh, you know, uh, God willing, I get picked up.
And I mean, your last, I think not all of them, of course, but I think three out of your last five fights have all been main events. So you've kind of been like the spotlight of a lot of these cards where maybe the UFC would have more eyes on you as well. So, what's the thoughts on being in a lot of these main events on the regional scene?
Yeah, man, it's awesome. I like to have all the attention on me. I can't wait for that when I get into the UFC and you have all the cameras and you have a bigger audience, and I love that. The cameras and the lights and the fans and everything that makes me fight better. I get more excited to fight. I like that, and some people it makes people shut down. It actually like makes me fight better. Um, I've been yeah, like you said, I've been main event and actually I think three of the five,
Yeah.
and man, it's just extremely surprising to me. I sit at home and I think about it. I'm like, man, what's going on? You know, I see these guys. I see some guys get one fight and they fight a guy who's 1-12, extreme losing record, or 0-12. I've seen it. 0-12, and then they get into the UFC and they get a 4-fight deal in the UFC and they get just slaughtered their first fight. I don't I don't understand it. And I've had five of them, and three of the five have been finishes as well.
Yeah. And I mean,
Uh,
it's not like most people like you were saying are fighting like losing record guys. Your last four wins have all been veterans and winning record opponents, not guys that you're just going out there 100% to beat.
right. Even the one record that is not very good is that one I fought in Brazil. Now, if you knew the story behind that one, I actually was in Brazil visiting my wife, and I was there. We are at the show hanging out, and I had kind of caught wind the day before. They're saying, "Hey, you want to fight?" And I was like, "Fight? Why would I fight?" And they're like, "Well, we have a spot. This guy, you know, he needs to fight." And I was like, "Okay." Well, and they said, "Well, can you make 165 pounds? You're just gonna have to make 165 today, and then you'll have a fight tomorrow." And I was like, "You know what? Why not?" You know, I hadn't fought for a while after Contender Series, and I was kind of a little upset about the Contender Series fight because I got eye gouged,
Yeah.
and I was kind of got disheartened from that fight. And then they said, "Hey, you know, you want to fight over here, you know, today or tomorrow?"
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay, I'll do it." I didn't even ask who it was. They said, "We got a guy for you." So I went in. I made 165 pounds, and then the next day I fought at the I think it was the main event
Yeah.
of that card, and I fought for a title. Fought the guy, you know, um, supposedly uh, I just fought the guy. I knocked him out in first round, and so that was good. That was a good deal. I would normally not choose someone with a record as of that, but I was like, yeah, why not fight? You know, they were gonna pay me a little bit of money. I needed a little bit of cash while I was in Brazil, anyways, so it all made sense.
Yeah, I mean that's a great story and a great like just chance to get an easy fight while you're visiting family and your girlfriend you said, right? So is that something even if like one of these regional shows say maybe in like August, beginning of August, they're like we'll give you a 5-20 guy. Are you going to accept that fight or do you want to like keep the record and keep your win streak against mainly like winning record guys from now on?
That would be ideal to fight guys that UFC is gonna be impressed by. But I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I don't feel like the UFC is interested too much in who you beat, uh, as of how or if you're finishing people.
Yeah.
So what I mean is like is if you can't finish people on the regional scene, you're not going to finish people on the world scene, and that's something I'm told a lot. And uh, I've finished, you know, three of the five, and the two that I didn't finish, nobody finished. And there's guys that are in UFC that fought them that couldn't finish them. Um, you know, yeah, if I fought them again, maybe I could get the finish. But I'm telling you, like these guys are durable. I probably shouldn't have even fought those guys. They were durable. They're big time vets, and no one's been able to take them out.
Yeah. And out of
Yeah.
those two veteran guys that you did fight, which one would you say was probably like the tougher matchup for you? Because they both did go to a decision. You weren't able to get the finish. Who would you say was kind of the harder fight?
So none of those were tough for me. I could fight them one dimensionally and beat them like I did. Uh, and that's not tooting my own horn or anything. I literally just I saw any these guys on the regional scene. I'm able to beat them fighting one dimensional. I I would say that it really out of those two guys that were tough to finish, they both gave me different problems. One guy was
Yeah.
like 6'4", and the other guy was about my height. Um, and I used wrestling on both of them and was able to get the job done very easily. And after I beat him, I wasn't tired. Um, I wasn't happy with it. Uh, I tried to take them out. I went for the finish, but they're hard to kill. Um, let's say I would say uh, what's his name? Uh, the older guy. Um, he was my one of my recent not finishes. What
Nick
was it?
Compton.
I can't. Nick Compton. Yeah, he was durable. I hit him with some hard shots that would have made normal people quit, and he thought about it. I saw it in his face, but then he just kept moving. So he was durable. I'll tell you that. That guy was hard to kill. He still has not been finished.
And this upcoming matchup, obviously Alejandro Martinez, if you aren't signed to the UFC, you'll be fighting him in November. Do you feel this is a matchup not like those last two guys where they're pretty hard guys to finish? In Alejandro Martinez's case, I think he's been knocked out like 4 times. He's been submitted 1 time, but he's also a finisher in his own right. So how do you kind of see this fight playing out?
Yeah, I really haven't studied him much yet. I watched him fight Cody Steele, and
Yeah.
I look at him like he goes for it.
Yeah.
He leaves a lot of openings, and that's why he does get finished a lot. He doesn't fight conservative, and someone that doesn't fight conservative with me, I feel like I'll get the finish. I'll see the opening and I'll finish, get the job done. I feel like there's many ways for me to do it, and I'll feel it in the middle of the fight. I can adjust on the fly and get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a very fun fight when it does happen. I think most of his fights that go to a decision, and they even the fights that he does get finished in, it's not really early on in the fight. It's sort of later on in the fight when it's starting to get a little bit more tired, starting to get a little bit more sloppy. So a good chance for you to definitely get a finish in there. But we kind of talked about some of your like short term goals, of course, to get in the UFC, maybe a short notice offer, possibly contender series, maybe a spot opens up there, but. What would be maybe some of your long term MMA goals?
So yeah, long term goals is getting UFC and be in the top 15 within my second contract. At the first contract, I want to fight. I know there's levels to fighters in the UFC. Um, I want to fight entry level fighters, and then until I get that second contract or third contract, then start making my way up the ladder. Uh, you know, a, a, a lot like how Patty Pimlet is doing it right now.
Yeah,
He has had good fights, tough fights. Nothing's easy in the UFC.
yeah.
He's had tougher fights to help him build and get used to that level of competition. Now he's starting to move up. And Patty Pimlet would be a fun fight for me. I sit there, I watch him fight, and I drool over that one. I feel like that's a finish for me all day. Uh, he can't box and
Chin.
he, can't wrestle. So yeah, yeah, chin's way up in the air. He's slow, and there's a lot, and there's gonna be a list that I'm gonna start calling out. No one's gonna really want to be my friend once I get into UFC, but hey, we're in here to make money, put on a show, and that's what I'm here to do.
And I've talked to a few UFC guys that are they maybe have a loss on the regional scene, and then they end up going into the UFC sort of at a similar time as the guy they've lost to. Is there any like sort of you want to get that one back with Manuel Torres? I know he's doing really good right now, 3-0. He's going to be on UFC Noche. He's pretty hyped right now in that lightweight division, but you never know if you get if you get in the UFC, you put in a win streak. Would that interest you, or are you like, that was in the past? I'm going to worry about my future now.
Yeah, of course. You know, I know I beat that guy 9 times out of 10. And uh, if you really watch the way that I start fights, I have to figure people out. I study them. I figure their timing. I figure out their responses, and I was starting to figure him out. And I actually drove him into the cage. I knew I wasn't going to finish the first takedown on him because he's strong and wiry. And as I was separating, that's whenever the eye poke came in, and it was unfortunate that it was stopped at
Yeah,
that time. But yes, I actually spoke to his coach about it. I saw him when my wife fought on Contender Series, and I said, um, I said, man, the fight with me and Manuel Torres would be a good rematch in the UFC. And he says, yeah, but I don't really want that. And I was like, well, why wouldn't you want that? Because that fight wasn't that didn't end fairly to me, you know. Um, and he says, we I believe that y'all two are gonna fight whenever it's a contender for the title or a ranked when y'all are both ranked.
yeah,
He believes that we'll both meet again later on. He says there's no reason for y'all to meet very early into the UFC and early in y'all's careers as well. Um, I'm down to meet anytime. I feel like that one uh, was ended poorly, and he knows it, and he ran his mouth a little bit, and it kind of irritated me. He says that I quit. Of course you're gonna quit when your finger goes through your eyelid. Um, you know, he says that he felt me shutting down, but yeah, I mean, when you can't see, you can't fight.
yeah.
It is what it is, and we'll see. We'll see whenever we get that rematch. We'll see who quits.
And what would be maybe
But
your prediction
next,
if you rematched?
I believe I would pound him out in a second round.
Yeah,
Um, I would take him down, flatten him out, and pound him out, and there's nothing he can do about it. He's a one-round fighter,
yeah.
um, and I believe that he's extremely dangerous in the first round. Not taking anything from him, he's an extremely dangerous fighter in the first round. And if you can't handle the storm, he's going to take you out in that first round. And that's what I knew that what I was getting into whenever I had that contender series fight with him. I knew that he was going to be a storm. But I was starting to put my game plan into effect to wear him down a little bit and then look for the finish in the second or third.
And looking at the UFC lightweight division, I mean, a lot of people like to say it's between bantamweight and lightweight as like the most stacked weight classes, and some of the most exciting fighters are in them. Is there anybody like a legendary matchup in your mind that you would like 100% want to do? I mean, we have Gaethje, we got Poirier, got Max Holloway coming up. Is there any guy that you're just like, dude, if I could fight that dude, that would be absolutely awesome?
Yes. There was a short notice fight that I wanted, and his name just slipped my mind. Uh, but I wanted to fight him. He's exact. Maybe I can ring a bell in your head. He's got the most finishes in lightweight history. He's got the most knockouts in lightweight
Drew
history.
Dober?
Jim Miller.
Oh, Jim Miller.
Jim Miller. Jim Miller.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, Jim Miller. They were looking for an opponent for him last minute, and I wanted it so bad. I was walking around 170 pounds, but they chose a featherweight in my
Yeah.
spot, and
Jesse
and
but yeah, I
I
remember that. I remember that.
Jesse Butler. Now, now, if Jesse Butler came in and fought me at 155 pounds, I would do the same thing to him. Um, so, you know, my dream fight was Jim Miller. I was like, man, I would love to fight a star that would set my name right from the start, and that would be it. And but that was one of them. Patty Pimlet. That's a big one. That's one that I'm going to be hunting for. I know that I need to build my name a little bit and build my credentials in order to fight him. And I understand that. I know how it works. So I have to go in there and prove myself, and then start reaching up for him and try to grab him. Um, so the Patty Pimlet one would be really good. Jim Miller would be really fun fight too. There's a lot. There's a lot, but those are two off my head that I can think of.
Yeah, I actually really like that Jim Miller matchup a lot, and yeah, it was really weird because Jesse Butler was a featherweight coming up, and now he's actually fighting in the bantamweight division in the UFC. So it is really weird how they gave him that shot instead of a guy like yourself that was on a good win streak at the time. But that is all I got for you today, Colton. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me. If you got any thanks to training partners, family, sponsors, anything, the floor is yours.
No, man, just appreciate you having me on here and allowing me to talk about what's kind of happening in my career right now, and hopefully in the future we could speak again when I'm in the UFC.
Yep. Sounds like a plan, man. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, you too. See you later. Thank you.